And how we getting on, lads?
Hi.
What's up?
So today we're joined by Aaron LaPlante. Aaron, how about you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Aaron LaPlante, and I did the voice of the Duke in Resident Evil Village and some other stuff, but the Duke is what people care about. So that's what we're talking about today.
Well, you did
Well,
Primal as well, like.
no, hold
Primal,
on,
yeah,
because
yeah.
I've invited you here for Hotel Transylvania 3, man. To be
Oh,
perfectly
perfect.
honest with you.
Great. That's
Yeah,
great.
that's probably a cool one to be in. But just for proof of identity, you think we can get a bit of a Duke voice off you real quick?
I've been waiting for you, Thomas. And what's your name, sir? I can't
Jer,
remember. What, sorry?
Jer.
Jer. I've been waiting for you. Anyone has heard of the likes of you. A couple of heroes interviewing an awkward actor.
Oh, I love you. You're the best. I when voice actors do shit like that. Um, okay, so starting off with Resident Evil 8, obviously that was a big game to get into, but what was that like for you? Because obviously it started before the pandemic, and you had to get through part of it during it.
Yeah, for sure. It was interesting. I mean, when I auditioned for it, I didn't know what game it was. I didn't know what it was for. That's the thing about those games. They're like super secretive, and so they don't really tell you. So I went through the whole audition process, and then it wasn't until like a couple weeks later that one of the people that's in it, Sarah Coates, who played Marguerite in Seven,
Mm.
she's a friend of mine, and she's the one that recommended me for the audition. So after I got the part, they called me and told me I got the part, but I still didn't know what it was for. So then Sarah and I went out to lunch, and I was like, "What is the game anyway?" And she's like, "Resident Evil, motherfucker." I was like, "Whoa, that's 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 incredible." And the minute she said that, I was suddenly projected back to when I was 12 years old and playing the game, the first game with my friends for the first time. So it's really amazing to have it sort of be sort of a full circle experience for me. And also, a lot of the work that I do, especially if it's like anime or something, I tell somebody that I do it, and then I have to kind of explain what it is if they don't know. But if I just say Resident Evil, whether it be the games or those movies, it doesn't matter. Everybody knows what that is. So it's been absolutely amazing. And kind of like we were talking before, that this world of games is one of the only sort of avenues now where just like a normal journeyman actor like myself, who nobody knows who they are, can get a substantial part in a really really big franchise. And so it's kind of it's amazing. I mean, it's an amazing feeling. And also the fact that like my life and the aspects of my life have not changed even one bit. It's just that a few more million people know who I am now that didn't before. You know what I mean? But they know the character. That's another thing. And then that's what's kind of comfortable, is because me walking down the street or going anywhere, nobody knows who the hell, nobody cares. And I like it that way. But if my work can go out and people can get a big kick out of it, that's really amazing for me, because as you can maybe see, I'm a big fan myself of a bunch of different stuff. So I kind of know what the fans feel like.
Mm.
Yeah, man. You're just saying like it's a huge franchise, and like you're saying, it is really cool that people don't recognize you, kind of for, and that's the really cool thing with video games, that the actor's identity are well hidden enough that people wouldn't go up to you in the street, I think. Or maybe, I don't know, have you had any fan interaction in the real world?
Yeah, not really. Usually what happens is, and this is always kind of fun, and this is what I sort of thought would happen with the game too, in terms of my character, is that I'll be at like a dinner party or something. Maybe it's my girlfriend's friends or whatever, and I don't really know too many people. So we'll all be sitting around. And then I'll somebody will say, "Oh, well, what do you do?" And I say, "Oh, I'm a voice actor for cartoons and video games and stuff." And they say, "Oh, what have you done?" And then I'll say, "Well, I did this and that, and I just did Resident Evil Village." And say, either the person I'm talking to or somebody in the room will perk up and be like, "Holy shit, I love that game. Who do you play?" And then I'll say, "Well, I play the Duke." And they'll be like, "Oh shit," like you just do the points and suddenly they freak out. So it's that kind of thing is fun. And actually, the very first bit of fan interaction was just a fun story. So I gotta tell it. The game came out on a Friday. It was a Saturday. I was sitting there. My girlfriend was out of town. So I'm just sitting on the couch, kind of looking at Instagram and seeing how people are reacting to the game. It had just come out. And then I get a call from my girlfriend, and she says, "Hey, hon, so my ex-boyfriend from college called me," and I'm like, "Yeah," and she goes, "Yeah, his son, he's got an 8-year-old son, and his son has been playing the game nonstop, like just obsessed with it, like he's just absolutely, and his favorite character is the Duke, and he was convinced, he thought that Jack Black had done the voice." So then and so then her old college boyfriend, he looked it up and saw that it was me, and he recognized me, but it's because he recognized me from pictures from her Instagram. So called her up and just wanted to tell her that. So then I was like, "Well, what's the kid's name?" And it was the first time that I went,
I've been waiting for you, Ben. Anyone has heard of the likes of you.
and did like a little video for him and sent it off to him. And it just blew this kid's mind. And that was the first time I'd ever sort of been able to use the voice in that capacity, like to just kind of, it's almost like, it sounds silly to say this, but it's like a little magic wand that you just kind of wave and suddenly like it blows somebody's mind. And that kind of power is really kind of neat. It's just, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's a unique one, and I suppose you're fortunate enough to have it. I can imagine like being that kid though. You know, you hear something like that, and your mind is just blown because obviously
Yeah.
these kids they spend a lot of time playing games, and if the kids like really playing this over and over, he would have loved that.
Absolutely. I mean, I put myself in his position. I can think back to when I was a kid and watching cartoons or playing games myself. And if there was some kind of way that one of the people that did the voice could then like say my name and send me a video and watch that, it would have absolutely blown my mind. That's why it's funny. There's all these little opportunities for fan interaction, and there's the attention is cool. It's just enough to make me kind of uncomfortable. And it's just because I sort of am ill prepared for it. I mean, I don't, because I've been working for a long time, and most of the time the work that I do, it'll go out into the world and it is popular, or it is notable, but none of the attention really gets turned on me. I'm just kind of a member of the crew that made whatever thing. Like Primal's a perfect example, because there's no dialogue, it's just sounds. And even though I shred the shit out of my voice doing it, it's more about the animation and the story. So to have it sort of be focused on me is great, but I feel like it's little fan interactions, like being able to sort of make somebody's day. The one thing, that, you've ever heard of that thing Cameo?
Yeah, I was about
Yeah.
to bring up Cameo. It's
Yeah,
really good
so-
for.
Yeah, people said, you should get on there. And I
Yeah.
never could. I was like, no way. And the reason why is because I thought nobody would want to hear from me. But then when I realized, well, it's not me, it's the character. If they're having a birthday or whatever, and then I could snap into the character and say,
Well, anybody knows it's your birthday today.
and stuff like that. So I got on there and I've done it a little bit, and that has been the most gratifying, like, fan interaction, even though, I mean, I'm getting paid for it, but like, people send stuff back and they're like, "Oh my God, I started crying when I heard it." And they're so into it, and I know exactly how they feel. So that has been actually that's been really cool.
I wouldn't exactly cry. I have a good laugh, but I wouldn't exactly cry.
Well, we'll see. I'll send you a video after this.
We got time. Don't worry.
I'll
We
be
still
crying by
got
the end of
time.
this. Actually, funny enough, I told some buddies of mine that I was having you on today. We have a lot of guests on. I say it all the time. Having this person on, what do you think? And I told him about that you were in Resident Evil 8, and I said you played the Duke, and he was like, "Who?" Like, okay, like you sleeping in the cave or something. But then I said, like, he's also your man from Primal. And like the reaction, like, "Oh my God, that's huge!
Oh, wow.
Oh my God, yeah,
That's
that's
really
such a
neat.
good show."
Wow, that's really neat. That's the first time I've heard that. Yeah, it's
But Primal's a fucking brilliant show.
yeah, it is, and it's definitely, it's the fellow behind that, Gendy Tartakovsky, is really, I mean, as far as like somebody like Chuck Jones, who created the Looney Tunes, I mean, Gendy is on that level in terms of just Dexter's Laboratory, Powerpuff Girls, which he worked on, the Clone Wars, the first one, Samurai Jack, all the Hotel Transylvania movie. I mean, all that stuff, and Symbionic Titan. There's so many different ones that he worked on. and so many different ones he created. I mean, Cartoon Network as a whole, his shows were the ones that were on Cartoon Network to start. And so for him to do this, it's kind of neat too, because he did a lot of kids stuff, but then he was doing Hotel Transylvania 3, and then he decided to kind of still be doing movies, but he wanted to revisit Samurai Jack because it had not really ended properly. And when he did, there's a lot more blood. It's a lot more violent. And then also in that, when you watch Samurai Jack, you can see that he's kind of like working up to a show where there's not much dialogue, where you're just kind of watching the action. And what's interesting about Primal is that was supposed to be, a long time ago, the original concept, it was supposed to be a little kid and a little dinosaur, and it was going to be more of a kid's show. But then there was that movie, The Good Dinosaur, that came out. And also Gendy has kind of a fascination with like Frank Frazetta, Vikings, different, and not violence per se, but just kind of the ballet of like actually animating a fight scene between two characters. And so to have a show where all it is fighting and all it is danger, but then there's also like deeply heartfelt moments. It's pretty fucking incredible. I mean, for me, what it feels like is to be one of the tools of an amazing artist. You know what I mean? To be like one of these paintbrushes, you know what I mean? To just kind of contribute. And that's what I was talking about before, about how none of the attention gets put back on me, which I'm totally fine with. It's more about the show itself. But what's neat about it, since there's no dialogue, it's all over the world, and there's no dubbing and there's no subtitle. It doesn't need anything, which is amazing. And I just did it the other day. We're doing a whole nother season of it. There's going to be 10 more episodes of it.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, because I was going to ask, because when I seen it, I was like, okay, this is a brilliant show. There's only one season. What's going on here? This is a mistake, But look, that's good to hear. Second season's coming. Tom's after disappearing or turning into a little old pint. Hopefully he comes back to us at some point.
Sorry, I was screaming frantically at my family members as they won't leave me alone. No, having conversations with all those people I help. I'm very charitable. No, yeah, but I was about to say, with those shows that there's no dialogue, I think it makes them more loved. Shows like Tom and Jerry or Mr. Bean or Looney Tunes, it makes them universally loved because it's more slapstick humor it's loved by all countries, all ethnicities. It's by everyone.
It also gets you off your phone.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You know what? Those are two really good points. To address the first one, that's the thing, is people are like, I've never seen a cartoon like this. And I'm like, yes, you have. You've seen, Roadrunner. That's what cartoons used to be. And then for what you were saying, keeps you off your phone. What's funny is Gendy tells a story about when he was at the Adult Swim headquarters, and he was showing the head of Adult Swim the first episode of it, and they had like a little catering. They had some pizzas out on a table, and he remembers Gendy was sitting next to the guy, and I feel like an asshole, I don't remember his name, but he was sitting next to him, and the head of Adult Swim picked up a piece of pizza, and he was about to take a bite of it, and the show started, and he watched the entire pilot and just held the pizza right here and didn't bite into it or anything. He was so enthralled with what was going on the screen that it's like, and Gendy said that exact thing, where when you're watching it, a lot of times people are watching something and then they keep looking at their phone and fucking around and checking Instagram and stuff like that. But with this one, you can't, because you'll miss something.
That's exactly it. And unfortunately, with our shite attention spans, that happens. But that's why I love doing shit like this. Like we'll probably talk for an hour, and be happy with it. But most people wouldn't. I don't know. People, to watch something like that, you'd rather go to TikTok and watch the 14-second clip.
Yeah, it's interesting that's why I think also too. That's why the medium of just games and stuff, and how it's like you're experiencing it the same way you would a movie or a TV show, except you've got something in your hands and you are contributing to it, and your relationship to it is not just watching an episode in the background while you're whatever. You have to be there, you have to be engaged. So people have a different relationship with these things than they do. They spend 60 hours on these things. Although it's funny, when the game first came out, I would say like a couple hours after the game came out, I was seeing people, and whether they were bullshitting or not, I don't know. But they're like, I just beat it on the hardest mode, and you did it with knives, and you're like, who are these?
I wouldn't even put it past them, man. There's guys that play video games with their tongue, like
Yeah, they're just incredible.
It's crazy how advanced it's gotten with knives. I would say it's possible, 100%. But
yeah, I mean, well, when I'm playing it, because I played it through once, and that's what's funny about these games, the Resident Evil, is that there's a lot of puzzles and stuff, but it lets you miss stuff, which I think is kind of a neat aspect of the game. It lets you miss, like if you were just kind of going too fast and not looking around enough, it'll let you miss something, and you find yourself way far, and you have to go all the way back and do this little thing. And this is kind of funny. I told this to Dan too, that when I first played Castle Dimitrescu with the lady and her daughters, I missed the Duke. I didn't run into him that whole time I was in there. And I was kind of bummed out because I was like, I remember there's a scene. I remember where I'm in this big castle, and there's a save point and everything. And that was another thing. I was sort of bitching to myself about like, why isn't there a save point in the castle? Because there is one in that room, but I totally missed the Duke completely. And so now I'm going back through and playing it again, and I was able to find him finally.
Well, fair play to you. I'll give you that. Fair play to you. Yeah, it was kind of weird with the Lady Dimitrescu and all the daughters there, because what we had, I think we only had one of the daughters on so far, but basically the conversation goes like, was it not a bit weird that everything was so sexualized? But I suppose Capcom kind of knew what they were doing. They knew they were going to hit the right audience with that, and that's why it was the trailer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, especially with the lady. I mean, like her design and everything. Yeah, people are just going crazy, and that was another sort of learning experience that I had, just about like when these games come out, what characters are popular and what characters I just kind of go unnoticed. And the lady, though, she hits all, because it's like, in addition to, of course, like guys being like, like, you know, like that she's voluptuous and whatever.
Big lady.
Yeah. But also girls love her, you know what I mean? Because she's this strong, badass woman. So they kind of like hit both demographics, really. And that's why anybody's interest in the Duke at all is another surprise to me, because I've played games with merchants in them before. I knew that my function was going to be the merchant. So in most of those games, the merchant is situated in one part of the game. You go visit him whenever you need shit. He says the same lines over and over again, and that's about it. And that's kind of what I thought my function was going to be. But Capcom, what they did is they took it a step further, because of course they had the merchant in 4, and he was a beloved character, and everybody, there's a lot of people clamoring like, we want to get a merchant back. So what they did was, they had it be, he's situated outside the graveyard. You can go see him. But then when you're at not all 4, but when you're in some of the most stressful parts of the game, he also shows up. So then it became the character became beloved because of the relationship that the player, or that Ethan Winters, has to him. And so, that interest and that admiration is not, it's more deep down. So you're not going to see as much fan art of the Duke, or, obviously people cosplaying as the Duke or whatever. But then you've got these villainous characters, especially the lady, who, just the way she looks, I mean, even without her saying anything, or even if you didn't know, you'd say, well, that's a new character in a video game. You'd be like, holy shit. You know what I mean? There's such a stylized thing to her. So I feel like the lady is the John Lennon, and the Duke is like Ringo.
Sure. In fairness, it's hard to, have any kind of time in the light when there's a 9-foot tall vampire lady in front of you. Like, there's not a lot of room, and even for a big guy like your man.
Yeah.
Which is pretty weird. I want to bring up as well, like when you were doing a mocap, like when Mark Ruffalo does the Hulk, they put like this big thing on his head and they give him these Hulk hands. What did they do for you? Because you were, obviously you're not as big as the Duke.
No, yeah. Well, it's funny because like originally when I got the part, they said, okay, so this is the voiceover, but then also we're going to be doing mocap for this one, and they haven't quite figured out, because my character was still sort of in development. Even like when we did the first table read, I didn't have anything to read. In fact, Neil, who plays Heisenberg, wasn't able to be there. So I actually wound up reading his lines just to kind of fill in at the table read, but they didn't have any lines for me to read. So it was still being worked out. And I had seen pictures of the Duke, and he looked a little bit different. He still had the suit on. It was still really big, but did have more of a grotesque look to him, like sores on his face and stuff. And so they said, we're going to be doing some mocap. And I was excited for that. But then what ended up happening was they didn't need me to do any mocap because the character is so big. And during my audition, which is like probably the longest audition I've ever had, when I got in there, I did the scene and I did the voice and everything. And then the director was all excited about it. But then he's like, okay, so let me just kind of call out a few movements. You can do them. Try to reach for something behind your back. You're really big. So I'm kind of reaching, and then you've got a cigar and you could get some ash on yourself and kind of wipe it off and just do some of these different moves. And then the American producers at the workhouse told me later on that they took that video and looked at it quite a bit. Now, what actually made it into the game, I couldn't point it out. Like I couldn't say, oh, see that movement? I remember doing that or whatever. I have no idea. That's all their design. But that was kind of my mocap. So all of the wearing the suits and doing all the stuff, they all kind of got to do that together. And I wasn't really a part of that. So if any of you watched that sort of reunion that we did on Nicole Tompkins' Twitch, that's the first time that I was meeting a lot of those people, other than the table read, because at the table read, nobody even knew what I was. I mean, if you've heard some of Maggie's interviews, she didn't even know what she was involved with at the table read when she started reading it. And then after the table read, she heard people sort of clamoring like, oh, Resident Evil. And even that, she didn't really know what they were talking about. So it wasn't until she got involved and did some research herself and found out what a big deal it actually is.
What a big deal she was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that's kind of interesting that they kind of just had you do a couple small things and said, oh, right, go on. But I suppose, like, you're right, your man was kind of like stuck for movement.
Yeah, well, and the thing about it too is that I had the benefit because I didn't really do much mocap. They had done a lot of design on the Duke, and so there was. I went in there probably like 6 or 7 times to like different recording sessions to do different lines, and the Duke has a lot of lines. I mean, he's in the whole game, so doing all of them different ways because they didn't want to know. They didn't know how mysterious they wanted him to be. So it seemed like every take I would do, it would be like a really mysterious one, and then one that was just kind of friendly, and that it wouldn't really spark any kind of like curiosity or sort of warning in Ethan. But the fuck was I talking about? Oh, and so I was doing the lines, and then what ended up happening was those reactions, those little wiping the cigarette ash off and doing all that kind of stuff. I actually was in the booth and I got to see the Duke, not fully designed, but for the most part. And they already had his movements animated. So then I just kind of like went like, or like made sounds along with the Duke's motions, which is actually kind of funny because that's what I do for Primal. Because usually you record an animated character and then they do the animation later because they have to match the lip flaps and stuff. But with Primal, the animators, they animate the entire thing. It's fully done. And then when I go in there, we go beat by beat and I watch the character like jump off something, punch something, stab a dinosaur, and then scream. And I have to follow that action as the character's going. So when I did that for the Duke, I was kind of used to it.
Dude, that must like be awful for your voice. Like you
Yeah,
whispering after.
Yeah, I did it. I just did an episode of it the other day, and there's sometimes it's like when and I did some of these in some of the earlier episodes where I do the voice of Spear, but then sometimes if he's fighting somebody or like some monster or like a gorilla or something like that, I will also do the voice of the thing that he's fighting. So it's me fighting myself basically. So you have to do the entire episode as one character and then do the entire episode again as the other character. And I have to warm up my voice for like almost a day before. So I drive around like whenever I'm doing stuff and I just sing in the car just to kind of like get my voice going. And then on the way, I sing a lot of like old 90s rap songs, but in an operatic voice on the way to the studio. So just hit the east side of the LBC on a mission trying to find Mr. Warren G. And I'll just do that for like the 2 hours that it takes me in traffic to get to the studio, do the session, and then I'll sing on the way home. Because I also have this special cough syrup that I get in Chinatown that was actually
Special cough syrup, huh?
special cough syrup. It's completely holistic. It's all like marshmallow roots and stuff. But it was suggested to me by Fred Tatasciore, who is the guy who does the voice and has done the voice of the Incredible Hulk for years. And that guy, I mean, everything that he does, whether it be a video game or anything else, is always just, he has a huge voice. So like, it was definitely a game changer for me. But my voice is still kind of fucked up from the other day. Can I say fuck on this podcast? I just said it like
Dude,
multiple.
we're Irish.
No.
Okay,
no,
okay.
no.
I'll give it up.
What's the thing with that podcast we did, Jared? Where we were invited on this person's podcast, and before the podcast starts, she goes to us. So, FYI, I know you guys are Irish, so you're not really allowed to swear because their podcast is to a predominantly American audience. And I'm like, oh, no problem. And after we were done recording, they got back to us and said, oh yeah, I had to edit out a good 15 minutes of that podcast because of the.
There's something about sometimes that's the thing. I feel like I've said fuck like so many times until now, but it's only now that I realize it. You know what I mean? Like they just kind of flies out, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
the thing is, over here in Ireland, it's not as
Doesn't mean
vicious. It's not as vicious because
Yeah,
over in America, when you guys say "fuck you," it's very, you hate that person and you wish death upon their family kind of stuff. But over here, man, if I said that, like I'm talking to my dad. No,
It's not even kidding. It's not even kidding.
I'm like, I'm telling my dad he did a good job. I'm like, fuck off with you. Good on you.
That's really it. It's really weird, like the big difference there, because when we talk to some Americans, sometimes I'd say a curse word and I'd see the look on their face like, and I'm just kind of like, okay, sorry. I'm not going to curse again.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I guess with these, that's another thing too, is that this doing what we're doing right now is another thing that I'm not used to. I mean, since the game came out, I've done a few of them. I mean, I feel like Dan Allen, that was actually the first one that I ever did. And even after that, I mean, I watched it again and it was fine. We had a great time. But after I was done, I went out and sat on the couch and looked at my girlfriend. I was like, I hope I didn't say anything stupid, or, you know what I mean? Like there's something about, now I have a little bit more control of it, but I've been doing this shit for like 10 years and this is the first time that anybody's ever wanted to talk to me about it, or, you know what I mean? So I kind of felt, I was a little bit blindsided. I didn't expect I figured all the other characters would be sort of making the rounds, but little by little, I'm figuring out that people really like the Duke. So I find myself like trying to like be careful what I say, but then I'm kind of relaxing a little bit more.
There's I mean, it's not nothing bad you can say. Most interviewers like they either bleep out the thing or just say don't. But the people who say don't curse, it really does freak me out sometimes. Like, do you not curse in your own time? Like, what are you scared of here? Like, if I say fuck, are you gonna like explode?
Yeah, well, I think one thing too, though, is the thing I need to remember is that like, there's never going to be any like religious podcasts asking me to talk about the Duke. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's sort of like anybody that plays Resident Evil and likes Resident Evil is not going to be offended by the word fuck, I don't think.
No.
Yeah. No, hold up there. You say no religious podcast, and I'll have you know.
Give it
No, all right.
Oh my God, it's a religious. Excuse me.
I'm gonna have to tell Granny not to watch this one anyway. No.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's always a weird one. Have you had to do an interview yet where they're like, you can't curse, or like you cursed and they were like, don't do that?
No, I mean, no, I don't know. I think that there's been, I mean, no, they've all been pretty chill. There's some though and I got pissed off the other day because there was a guy who wanted to do a Zoom, and then he wanted to and then he was going to write an article. And so he wanted to kind of do a Zoom so that it was easier for him to transcribe instead of like over the phone, transcribe some of the things that I said. We could just do a Zoom call. And so we did it. And I was kind of just, like, I don't know. I didn't really care as much about being as articulate. And we're just talking and whatever. And then he took that, and instead of writing an article, he just posted that on Twitter, and it was all the audio was all fucked up and stuff. So that's kind of the only bad experience that I've had. Other than that, everybody's been really cool because, like you guys and Dan, like, you've been doing this for a long time and definitely have experience doing it. It's not, there was one guy and he was super nice, but he was terrified. It was this guy from Iran, because in the Middle East, Resident Evil's like a huge deal there. They're like huge fans of it. And he asked me if he could interview me, and I just said, yeah, sure. And he was shocked that I said yes. And so when I got on there, he was like sitting there like, I'm really nervous. I'm like, don't be nervous. I mean, like, I'm just sitting in my stupid apartment. You know what I mean? Like a month ago, nobody even knew I existed,
Yeah.
So
Dude,
Yeah.
that's literally it. Like, we're just people having a chat. Like, we all got up this morning, brushed our teeth, had a coffee, tea, whatever, pick your poison, and we're having a chat.
And I think what's really neat too is that, especially in the gaming world and with like podcasts, that's why I mean, like, I've turned down a couple just because whatever, they seem kind of like inexperienced or whatever. But for the most part, I do them all just because I've also found that the fan relationship to the people that actually, at least the voice actors, it's kind of cool that you can just have a podcast and then just sort of reach out to somebody, and there doesn't have to be this like corporate shit. You know what I mean? It can all just be like person to person, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. The corporate stuff leaves room for manipulation and like changing your words.
Yeah.
What was the weirdest one? We had a voice actor on, and they got their corporate team to sit in the Zoom with us while the interview was happening. That was a bit weird now, and we put them on mute and we hid their screen. But after it ended, it's like you nearly forgot they were there, and they, the interview ended. And they were like, "Okay, thanks." I'm like, "Oh fuck, I completely forgot you were here." It was,
It just
like
overly involved management.
Yeah,
I think there's also too the fact that anybody that's got a podcast and that wants to talk to me at all, I already know that they know what they're talking about. They're familiar with games. I don't have, you know what I mean? Like, whereas I think there's other avenues, like a lot of on-camera stuff where you do like press or something, there's a person and they're just a press person. They're not interested in what you've done. They might not have even seen it, but they're just asking all these questions so they can get like little sound bites. And these things are different. Like the people I'm talking to actually know what they're talking about, which is nice.
Yeah, it'd be kind of weird if someone was like, "How are you getting on, Aaron? I'd like to do an old interview with you," and then they start making mistakes about your character. They like maybe say that said you were Ethan Winters or something, and they don't know shit about the thing you were in. That must be really awkward because I've seen it happen to other actors where people try to interview them and then they mix it up.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that like I've been lucky to not, I mean, so far not have that, because the ones that I've turned down, you just can kind of tell. You're like, this is just a fan that wants to have an hour-long conversation with me. It's not going to go anywhere or be any, you know what I mean? Like, and their questions are probably going to be kind of shitty, and so it's nice to be able to talk to a couple experts.
thank you.
Where?
Cool. Yeah, they sound like cool guys.
What was it? With this though, like would you say like people having an hour-long chat with you or something? We started using OBS. If you're familiar with that software to
I don't think
record
so.
this. So you'll notice the Zoom call right now isn't recording. I'm recording on a separate thing, and like I started thinking about it because we've been doing it for maybe a couple of weeks now, and I was like, has anyone ever noticed it's not recording in the Zoom call? And it's recorded on something else. Like, would someone walk away from it thinking, did we even do a podcast? Was it just like this guy's ended up booking a call with me? Yeah. But no, there's proof on the internet, anyways. But yeah, I don't know. Making a podcast is weird old business. You ever consider doing one yourself? You got the voice for it.
No. Yeah, I don't know. I think people have talked about it, but there's, or I'll have like friends that'll be like, "Hey, we got to start a podcast, and here's the deal: we talk about movies." And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. So we're just going to a couple of shitheads talking about movies. Like, how many podcasts about that are there? You know what I mean? Like, or should we have guests, or is it just us talking about what we think about, you know what I mean? Like, so there's been a lot of things. I think also too, my low self-esteem keeps me from doing that because I'm kind of like, who the fuck would want to listen to me? You know what I mean? Like, but my friend, like, there's been some interesting ideas for ones. And I have I have a lot of fun being a guest on them. It's fun to talk about this stuff. So yeah, I mean, I guess like as I do more of this stuff, I sort of think about it, but I feel like I sort of believe that it's you either like have the ability to book interesting guests, or you have some kind of gimmick, you know what I mean? But if it's just like two dudes like, oh, now we're going to talk about the Ghostbusters for the 580 millionth time, you know what I mean? Like, and there's a lot of those, like when you're searching for stuff, you have to kind of like wade through a lot of that shit. And so I feel like I think I would if I had a really good idea for it, or if I had the ability to book interesting guests, you know.
Yeah.
Let me tell you here,
That's
Aaron,
fair.
you would not believe the saturation of film podcasts, and true crime for some reason is very, very popular. It's
It is. Yeah.
very popular.
Yeah.
These kind of shows, interview shows, even though they get a lot of the views from podcasts, they're more of the rarer ones, I believe. I mean,
Yeah.
compared to those,
Like, man, it doesn't take long to find how many true crime podcasts there are, and maybe 4 or 5, maybe it could be even 20 big ones. But then it's just, smaller ones that are trying to do it. Like, it's seriously saturated. But then
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
yeah, I suppose what one is all right, but
like trying to find, and like that's sometimes like I'll have the ones that I listen to, but then like, you know, like trying to, it's sometimes it can be kind of a journey to find a new podcast to listen to. Usually people go off recommendations, word of mouth, or if they see something, you know, on Twitter or whatever.
I mean, like when it comes to, if you're going to start one with like the whole like guys talking about movies thing, ask yourself, would I watch that? Would I listen to that?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Because there's also too, I find that there's a lot of you'll find these people and you can tell they don't know shit about movies, and they're just like, you could open up IMDb, the trivia section, and just follow along with the podcast, and they will be like reading off all the shit that's in the trivia section of whatever given movie. Like, I don't know if you guys realize this, but in Psycho, they use chocolate syrup instead of blood. Isn't that weird? And I'm like, fucking, if you know anything about movies, already know that. It's, you know what I mean? But there are some people out there that are like, oh my God, that's so interesting. I didn't know that, you know? And so it's grabbing people's attention. That's another thing. It's like navigating the world of social media. That's something that, you know, because there are fans of this game. And if they want to reach out to me or contact me in any way, they know where to find me. When the game came out, it was a lot of that. Now it's not really that at all. The fans, I just kind of have decided to let the fans decide how interested in me they are or not, because it's not me, it's the game, it's the character. So if they want to spend time with the character, they'll play the fucking game. They don't need to like engage with me on Twitter or Instagram for that matter. And I also am not, you know, like every now and again I'll dip into Twitter and just put a little bit of Resident Evil content and then dip out. But it's like this sort of like actors being actors kind of like you know, taking the attention, being like, look over here, you know what I mean? Like, I can't it's not that I don't want to do that, I can't do that, I just can't. It's not in me to do that.
I can tell by you.
Yeah. But that thing you're talking about right there, like, it is very hard for fans to separate the character from the actor, and sometimes they get too involved. Maybe like they will go overboard with it. So
Classic
I can understand.
example, Joffrey, Game of Thrones.
Game
the guy
of Thrones.
got death threats after.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, they really, yeah. Or there's sometimes, if like with that Cameo bit, or if there's even just a comment, like if somebody's having a hard time and they really love the Duke and the Duke gives them a lot of comfort one reason or another, then for me to be like, oh, you know, like get well soon or whatever, that's really meaningful. That's really cool. But when not so much anymore, luckily, but when the game first came out, I got a bunch of these messages, and all they said was, I need to talk to you. And there was a lot of them from all over the world. People just going, I need to talk to you. And I'm just like, I don't need to talk to you. I mean, like I love engaging with the fans. Like I said, I'm a fan myself. But so, you got to give a little bit more. You can say, I need to talk to you because my child is sick and he really loves the Duke. And could you say hi to him? And like, I will, of course, do that. But if just to talk, I'm good. I got my girlfriend to talk to, and I've got some friends to talk. I don't need to talk.
That's pretty weird. To be honest,
That's fucked. That's not even
You can
weird,
imagine
man.
if I'm getting that. Imagine what Maggie's getting.
Oh my god.
Oh,
You can just even
apparently she
like
loves it. Nicole was telling us she loves it. I like
Yeah.
that she'd be sending like memes back and forth of like the Lady D like fan art and everything. Like
Well, that's the thing. And like, and if she can, if she can sort of like navigate that and not get uncomfortable with it, more power to her for sure. I sincerely hope that in the future, maybe I can get there. And a little by little I am. I mean, because I can basically, like what I was saying before, I can control my engagement with the fans. If I don't want to, I just don't. And they don't really seem to be like knocking my door down, which I really am grateful for, because at first there was this kind of ground. The trailers came out, everybody saw the lady, and we're like, holy shit. And it was all about the lady. So then when the game came out and people started to have interactions with the Duke, there were little articles saying like, oh, wait a minute, the Duke, and people love the Duke. And there was this little sort of swell, and that is kind of like chilled out a little bit. And so whenever I talk to fans of the Duke, they're not just passing. They don't just have a passing interest. They're really, really into the Duke. Very similar to the fans of the Beatles that are super into Ringo. Like I said before.
you're a Beatles fan? Sounds like it.
I love the Beatles fan. Yeah. You can see right here. This is I collect animation cells, and I've got a shitload of them. They're all on the walls there.
Oh wow.
From different cartoons, mostly from cartoons from my childhood. But some of the ones I actually took the cells themselves and then changed the background. So you can see I found
is that He-Man?
it's He-Man. Yeah, I found a cell of all the He-Man characters walking in profile. So then I just took the background from Abbey Road, and I actually, sorry, let me stand up. I'll go find another one here. I did the same thing for the
that's pretty cool.
for the awesome. Fat Albert kids.
Oh my god.
Which is kind of cool. And then I also did now this is kind of show and tell here, but I got to show you another one here.
Oh, we love it.
This is
great, man.
I love
the Beatles.
Ghostbusters cartoon. It was one of my favorites growing up, and I love the movie The Shining. So I took a Ghostbusters cell and I had somebody paint the two little girls at the end of the hall, so it looks like the Ghostbusters are in the hotel with The Shining.
That's beautiful. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
You got good taste. I'll give you that.
Oh, thank you.
Did you watch yesterday, man? The the film where the
I have not seen that yet, and it's not because I actually did want to see it, but you know how like there's so much stuff to watch that sometimes you just kind of miss it. Like if it's not in front of your face, and I'll be like cycling through trying to find something to watch, and I'll see it and be like, oh, I got to watch that, and then I always just kind of forget it.
I would highly recommend it. Very good. Good watch.
Yeah.
Thankfully for us, Thomas, if we want to book someone on the show, we have to end up watching something. So we have plenty of excuses.
Nice.
Okay, so we kind of went on a bit of a tangent there, but if you want to smack back onto the Duke there, when you were looking at like the lore and all about your character, like after the fact, what do you think his whole story is? Because he says he can't tell you what he is. He doesn't even know himself.
Yeah.
Well, what's your interpretation?
Yeah, it's funny because that's another thing that I just did. You hear all like fan theories of anything, whether it be like fan theories of the Marvel universe or fan theory, whatever. I never really paid too much attention to them. But then for this one, of course, the Duke is so mysterious that there have been all these different fan theories, and people are making videos and stuff and talking about where they think he is or what. And so I find myself, anytime I talk about it, I find myself just kind of stealing from those because they're so creative. I don't think I could really come up with anything better. But I will tell you that when I was recording it, because I was familiar with the Resident Evil universe and I had just played 7, that I suspected, like as we were going down through the lines and reading the different lines, and then I think it was the very last day I was recording, they say, well, this is your last day of recording. So then I was wondering if there would be any lines where the Duke suddenly became the villain of the game, or sort of like turned into some kind of monster and tried to kill you like at the end or something. Because, you know, if that happened, people could kind of expect that of the Resident Evil universe, because it's, for the most part, there's not really much help for the player other than like a phone ringing and you answer the phone and somebody says like, hey, meet me in the parking garage or whatever. Like that's kind of the only support that the players usually have. And so I thought he would be one of the four lords. And then after it was all done, I thought, well, I mean, I guess, you know, it's not. He seems to just be friendly. I obviously didn't say any lines that were threatening in any way. But then when Ethan wakes up in the back and sees that sigil, and so what I'd like to think is that there's a lot of different things. I don't really know if I could, I'm just going to say a few different theories. One, that I think that the Duke and Mother Miranda knew each other. And when Mother Miranda when Mother Miranda created the village, or took the village and turned it into what it became, or what the player sees it as, that the Duke was an inhabitant of the village, but he's this alchemist and he has some kind of secret power that Mother Miranda, so because he's invincible. I mean, if you throw pipe bombs at him, nothing's going to happen. And so, and he always seems to be really calm about everything. So I feel like he is this character that can't get out of the village. So the only thing he can think to do is help anyone that comes in to try to make things better. So I thought of that's one of the things I thought. I also think about the Duke as being, maybe there's some psychic aspects of the Duke, because he always knows where you're going to be. And whenever he talks to you as you're going off, it's almost as if he knows you're going to succeed. So he's just kind of, so that's where the sort of calming presence comes from. So that's another thing that I think of him. There's little Easter eggs where it talks about that he like meets with the four lords and actually does deals with them, which makes me think that he has a really strong power, and that power is in the ability to, you know, make potions and somehow figure out how to be invincible. So the four lords even do deals with him, because I think that each one of them want to become bigger than Mother Miranda. But that's just my theory. I mean, and again, I'm probably stealing from a bunch of different YouTube videos on this same subject, and they came to that conclusion way before I ever could.
I'll be probably onto something there, yeah. Yeah, my interpretation would have been that he's probably involved with the whole Mother Miranda experiments. You know, actually, I don't know, she put that thing in everyone.
Mm.
That like, I don't know, that your man might have one, but he's like the least mutated or something. And then he just wanted to get away from it, like Heisenberg did.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe in his own way, he was trying to help Ethan the way Heisenberg was, because Heisenberg wanted to use you at the end to try and help him beat Mother Miranda. Maybe Duke was doing it in his own way as well. So
yeah, I mean, well, the fact that he didn't, you know, everybody asked me, did he die in the explosion? And of course he didn't. I mean, there's no like, I don't know for a fact, but I mean, he didn't die. And so then people say like, ooh, is he going to be in the next one? But you know, I can't even think that far ahead. And also, what I've discovered, which I think is really kind of neat, is that, you know, the games kind of started off as being like the Umbrella Corporation, it's zombies. It was obviously one of the first like sort of big survival horror games. And it came out before The Walking Dead and all that. So it kind of is regarded as being one of the things that kind of like started the zombie craze, because obviously zombies have been around for a long time, but it's only in recent years that everybody's obsessed with zombies. And then as it went on, it started to become a little bit more of like a first person shooter, almost like Call of Duty and zombies at the same time, like in some of the other games. So then I think when 7 came around, it was as if they were like, okay, let's go back and let's do, obviously we'll have some tie-ins to the Umbrella Corporation and stuff, but for the most part, let's do an entirely different game. And then now they do The Village, and it isn't, it's like one of those like fantasy games, but survival horror at the same time. So for the next one, who the hell knows what it's going to be? But I guarantee you, maybe some of the characters are going to carry over, but it's going to be an entirely different, you know, that show American Horror Story, where like every new season that comes out is a different kind of horror. I feel like there's going to be certain Easter eggs and elements that tie them together. But for the most part, the next one is going to be some new kind of horror. And it would be amazing if the Duke was in it, because I like to work. But if he's not, I mean, who the hell knows? Whatever, you know, or maybe there'll be like a callback to the Duke, like the Duke did for the callback for when he goes, "What are you buying?"
Just something an old friend of mine used to say.
which has become like actually one of the fans' favorite lines in the game because it calls back to the merchant in 4.
Yeah.
I think it's why they make those games so lovable by the fans, and that's because it's this big extended universe with all these Easter eggs and callbacks. And if you're as involved as the people making the games, you understand all these little references, and you get to build up these relationships, like with the Duke or with the merchant in Resident Evil 4, and it's very rewarding to be a fan of the series, I think. And
yeah, and the fact that also too, I mean, they realize that, you know, you obviously you spend a lot of time with the game, but that you're trying to figure out a way that sort of like to make it playable again, to make it worth it to go back through it again. And certainly for me, I mean, when I got through it, I was just trying to get through it because I did Dan's interview and I was only halfway through the game. And so he's asking me questions and wanting me to comment on certain things. And I'm like, I haven't even got to that part yet. So I kind of just went through it and frankly missed out on a lot of shit. I missed out a lot of the treasures that you're supposed to, I didn't find any of those. So now I'm actually going through and kind of taking my time and I'm noticing so many new things. I mean, I feel like obviously I remember doing certain things, but it feels like a whole nother experience.
Yeah. I can't even begin to imagine what it was like doing it and then playing it afterwards because, no.
Yeah, it was funny. I actually, the day that I got it, which I believe was the very next day after it came out, I was starting the game and the beginning of the game is terrifying. It was really just walking through the woods and stuff. And that scene where you go into that guy's cabin, he's got the gun and the lichen pulls him through the roof. It's just so cinematic and so great. I was so into it. But then there's a certain part where you come around the corner, I see the castle, and off in the distance, I see the Duke's carriage. So I stop and I go and I get my tripod out and I put my phone on it and I get it like framed right on my face, turn the TV up as loud as I can, press record, and then I go. And then right as the Duke goes, I've been waiting for you. Right as that happened, you can see my reaction. It's on my Instagram. You can actually see my reaction the very first time I heard my voice. And the whole thing was I was gonna do the voice and say something stupid into the camera, but you can see in the video, I'm so taken by it and so like, holy shit, that I suddenly just kind of get almost like blush and get kind of embarrassed because it just like, I was just stunned, to be honest with you. Because I mean, I've had that experience before of like recording a character and then seeing the show, and it's always satisfying and always neat, but there was something different about this because I think that when I was recording it, there was so much I didn't know. So what was neat is, yes, I got to hear my voice, but I was experiencing it the same way that just like anybody that was just playing it experienced it, because obviously they told me anything I needed to know to play my character, but any extra information, they didn't tell me anything. And good on them, because not only does it keep the secret, it also helps me to have a fun time when I'm playing it for the first time.
Yeah. That's a good way to be. Have to ask though, did they give you a free copy?
No, they didn't. They didn't. I was wondering if they would. It's funny because I did when I was a kid, I wasn't very good at games because, you know, the platform games, like there was a learning, you had to kind of either be good or not. And then as the game started getting more elaborate and they started adding different difficulty levels, that's when I started picking up games again, because I could just play it on casual. I'm not very good at this stuff, and I can still have the experience of playing it. And so for years, I didn't have a system or any kind of hardware. And then I did a game that came out years ago. And you know, like when you go into a game store and there's always like the really good games right here, and then a whole wall of like games that you're like, who made these? Like what?
Yeah.
Like who plays these? Well, this was one of those games, but it had an interesting idea, and some people really loved it, but I kind of couldn't really. It was a. Remember the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray?
yes,
Yeah.
They did a game called Groundhog Day, like Father, like Son, and it was a VR game that was a sequel to the movie Groundhog Day. You play as his son, and you go back to the town, and you start reliving the same day over and over again, and that's the gameplay, where it's like you have to do certain things and you have to remember certain things, and it's interesting in that sense. But it was really long, and it was a VR game, and so when I did that, I played the character Ned Ryerson, the guy that comes up to him on the street all the time. Phil, like that was the voice that I did for it. and that was the one where I did the facial capture. And then one day I get this box in the mail, and I usually I don't really order stuff that much. So I thought it was for my girlfriend. So I just kind of set it aside. And then finally she said, "What's that box?" And I thought it was for you. So I opened it up, and they had sent me a PlayStation VR so that I could play the game.
Oh wow.
And I was like, holy shit, that's amazing. But I didn't have a system. So that was what got me out to go actually get a system finally. So I still have the PlayStation 4. And when we were doing the game, I didn't when we were doing the game, I found out that it was going to be one of the inaugural titles for PlayStation 5. So I assumed, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to play it. I'll just kind of wait a few days and then watch the cinematics or cutscenes on YouTube or something. But then when it came out, I was so thrilled that they actually released it on 4 as well, so that I could play it,
Dude, virtual reality. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, well, that's another thing is that I played Resident Evil 7. There you go. That's so cool. Resident Evil 7. There's a VR. You can play it on VR, and I got really stoned one day, and I was like, I'm going to play Resident Evil in VR, and I was by myself here, and I put the thing on, and I walk into that first house, and I just ripped it out like a surgeon. Like a surgeon that had a bad, surgery. I just ripped it off my face and was like, no way. I dismantled the whole thing, put the VR helmet and put it in the closet. And I actually haven't taken it out yet because it was absolutely terrifying. And they talk about, I don't know for sure, and this is not official and I've not heard anything, but they talked about possibly, or some of the fans have been sort of like speculating, like, are they going to do a VR mod for Village? And I sincerely hope they do, because those VR experiences that you do, where you go somewhere and put on a thing and you have a gun and everybody's running around the room. I did a Ghostbusters one time, and it was one of the greatest things that I've ever done in my entire life. I was actually kind of tearing because Ghostbusters is my favorite thing. And I left and my girlfriend was like, how was it? And I'm like, it was one of the greatest experiences of my entire life. And so I think to the future, I mean, if VR is what it is now, I mean, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, I can't imagine what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
It is crazy. Even what we have today is, what are those haptic feedback gloves, Jared, that you can feel the items in VR with they apply pressure to your hand, so it actually feels like you're feeling the item that you can see.
The haptic gloves, you go to grab something in VR, and I don't know whatever it does, but it'll put like restraints on your hands, so it feels like you're holding something.
Yeah.
So say it's like a bouncy ball, you could squeeze it a little bit, but it would stop at a point, and you could throw it. How fucking cool would that be?
That is so cool. I mean, it's the possibilities are endless. I feel like I was also thinking about, I mean, this is a little bit of a tangent, but like, what if you were able to sort of download every photo that you've ever had, either online or otherwise, into some kind of software that would then, when you put on a VR headset, you could go to your 8th birthday. Like you could actually like be in the kitchen and your mom would be there and all your friends or whatever, like because it would like create that environment for you. You'd be at your grandmother's house, on Christmas or something like that, it'd be kind of cool.
Get the patent on that and get it fast.
I know, that's right. That Aaron LaPlante was the one that came up with that. So
but
you heard it here.
Here's one downside with VR though at the moment. I got the Oculus Quest 2, and Facebook bought Oculus. They're a huge part of VR at the moment. They decided they're going to start putting ads into VR.
Oh, really?
They announced it like last week, maybe even 3 days ago, that kind of period. They said they're going to start putting ads in VR.
That's wild. Do you think they would wait a little bit and get people kind of hooked on doing it and then put the ads in there?
Ads literally up against your eyes. Like, get out of here.
That's wild.
You're playing some kind of game and there's like pop-ups coming up for whatever. Imagine unskippable ads in VR.
Yeah, that is crazy. Yeah, if you're like, like fighting a dragon and then they're like, go to McDonald's. Like, yeah, that'd be awful.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. But I don't know. Unfortunately, like they're still good stuff. Like it's some of the cheapest headsets you can buy. But then you're just kind of stuck there with ads now. So can't wait to update that thing and have ads against my eyes. Yeah, but dude, VR is just so crazy at the moment. I don't know. I think it's very limitless in what it can do. Like Tom was just saying, we went from games like Pong, a ball bounces back and forth between two white bars, and
Yeah.
then you got these haptic gloves, you got haptic feedback suits. You feel if you got shot. You know, if you're near one thing to do for Skyrim VR, if you have one of those haptic feedback suits on, and you're near a waterfall, you get the humming of the waterfall like if you were actually at one.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
It's fucking
I mean, it's just
awesome,
it's the
man.
possibilities are endless. Well, one of the things that's kind of troubling that I've heard too is that, because a lot of I don't know if it's happening there, but there a lot of movie theaters are closing down. Now, obviously, COVID and everything affected that, but even before COVID and all that shit was going on, all these great movie theaters were closing, and people are starting to project that they are going to be replaced with a headset where you can sit on your couch, put it on, and then it makes you feel like you're at the movie theater so you can watch
I've
it
done it.
like that.
I did it the other
Which,
day.
it's crazy because it's like there's something about just the energy of being there, having a communal experience with other people. When something is either scary or funny, you can't replace that. You can try to, but I mean you can't. I don't know. It's just crazy. I'm sorry. I have to take a piss. Can I
Yeah,
take a
you
moment?
take
Go
a
ahead.
piss. Take your time.
I was
I was about
t-
to bring this up, Jared.
go on.
My favorite experience at a cinema ever, man, was opening night for Endgame. Because the audience, man, they were just so alive and electric, and you could people laughing, crying. They were shouting along with the Avengers, man, like clapping. You think people would be pissed off clapping in a cinema? Everybody was like applauding when
Oh,
portal scenes. It was
I was
man.
there as well. I heard no party, but everyone was just cheering for it. But here, when it goes to that VR thing, real quick, just a story I had there. So I was with my buddy, goes by No Brains. You probably know him, and we're sitting in VR, VR chat, and I'm dressed as Darth Vader. Okay, he's dressed up as like I don't know, he's some kind of like Greek statue, and we're sat in this VR chat cinema basically, and it was so weird. You sit in the seat. I look beside me, and there's just this Greek sculpture, and we're watching Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and I'm Darth Vader. Like, it's so bizarre what VR can do. It's like just saying what you were saying there a second ago, Aaron, about like the cinemas, like watching a cinema movie or whatever in VR. Weird experience.
Yeah, I mean the thing about it is, I just what my hope for humanity in general is that they look at all these new advancements, every new thing that comes out, and use it as a tool to then make something. As opposed to just be a user, just be somebody that like they've got a thing and I'm going to whatever. It's like take it and then use it to make something yourself. Like even these games, like I want the inspiration for people, even if they just use it for their own enjoyment. But I just mean like these new technologies that are coming out, it's like it's never going to stop. Whatever new technology comes out, it's like social media, anything. I mean, social media can ruin your life, poison your brain, or you can use it to get your work out there if you have work that you've made. I mean, it's kind of up to the individual. Even though we all feel like we're all connected now, we are actually not. We're not as connected as we ever used to be. We're just more aware of good shit and bad shit. So I feel like, you know, and I'm noticing that a lot with just the reaction and the attention that I've gotten for Resident Evil. It's kind of like, ooh, shit. Like, you could go one way or the other. I could be constantly on there asking people to look at me, or I could just like give them what they want, do the voice or something. And then they're happy. And it's like, well, that's great. You can use it to kind of spread happiness for something. And that's it. It's not about like, hey guys, Aaron here. I just made some pancakes and they were so good. You should have seen them. I should have took a picture, but I didn't. Anyway, because there's a lot of that out there now too. I
There
mean,
is.
especially among actors, because there's a large percentage of actors that want attention. I mean, obviously that's kind of the beginning of where it starts. And then, but it's interesting how, you ever notice how reality show stars usually don't transition into becoming actors because nobody will accept them playing a different character because all they do is remember them for doing what they are or what they did.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there's plenty of crossover. It happens, but for the most part. So what's happening now is people are trying to build their brand on Instagram. They're trying to become famous by being themselves. And then when they go to play parts, people are not going to accept them because they're going to be like, well, this is the guy that does really funny taco videos. And now he's trying to play a dragon. We don't believe it. You know what I mean? So that's another reason why I don't really engage in a lot of that stuff. I don't know why I started talking about that, but technology is going to ruin our lives.
No, you're right though. There's this huge thing online of people building up brands that are. We talk a lot about like fake, fake personas, or they say they're acting like themselves, and it's not at all what they're actually like in real life. And then you said they go for acting jobs. It doesn't work out, man. Because
yeah, I mean, and this is like really maybe overly dramatic, but the thing that I was struggling with is that if I don't do that stuff, is it going to somehow hurt my career? Because the business seems to be like, people look at actors and see how many Instagram followers they have. I mean, that is a real thing. So then I started to get kind of nervous, but then as it's been going on, this is a bit over dramatic, but I say, I'm not going to do any of that shit. And if I don't, and my career doesn't go anywhere, then I guess I wasn't meant to be a voice actor, because I live in this time. I can't live in any other time. So if it doesn't happen, I'll do something else. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of all I can really. And again, I mean, not to say that the fan interaction is great. It's just in the right way. If I'm sitting here talking to you guys, we're actually having a sincere conversation. It's great. But like, constantly like just having an audition and being like, hey guys, just had an audition. It went so well. I love you. And then like 5 minutes later, hey guys, I'm in the car now. I was in an audition. I walked through the parking lot. Now I'm in the car. 5 minutes later, hey guys, I'm in a drive-through now because I just got in the car. And now like it just, I'm saying that to be funny, but that's, if you follow some of these people, that's how it is. It's every little thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
you're right.
the thing is with them people now, they'll make a lot of money, but I
I
suppose
know
like,
that.
with
Yeah.
actors, you're starving. Like for work, a lot of time you're starving for work. It's really saturated, unfortunately. And if you can make money outside of the gig for a gig you've already done, I would do it. Like I know people who did modeling for characters in Call of Duty, not the voice, not
Oh
the
yeah.
mocap, modeling for the character, and they've made that a full-time streaming gig. So if you can do it,
Yeah. You can do stuff. I mean, look, and like these conventions and stuff, I'm going to them. I'm going to Chicago in October. I'm going to go to them. Of course, I'm going to go to them. For one, it's I go to those conventions myself as a fan, so I understand how they work, and I like the travel. It's cool to travel places, and also to meet somebody face to face and spend the day having people come up to you, and really you can see how excited they are about the work that you contributed to. That's great. It's amazing. And you make a little money. That's great. Whatever, that's fine. But yeah, like sort of trying to take it and then sort of take it to the next step is, I don't know. I mean, I think as the years go by, I think I'll sort of learn how I like to do it. And, what I said before about like maybe if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But also I do have sort of this optimism that exists because everybody says the business is so much different. It's changed completely. And it absolutely has. The way I like to think of it is if you are standing at a bunch of actors standing out in the desert, and there's this giant plateau, and that is the business, entertainment business. And we all are longingly staring up at it, trying to get up there. And sometimes somebody throws down a rope and you try to pull up and then you fall off. And then sometimes you actually get there. With streaming and the internet and all this kind of shit, that plateau has fractured into a million pieces. And now us actors are just kind of wandering around and picking up pieces and trying to make our own littler plateaus. And to be honest with you, I'm totally fine with that. Because there's so much going on and I have an ability that I can apply to those things, I think it's entirely possible for me to just carve out a little sliver of space that I can exist in, where I work on good shit. My work is good, but I'm not famous at all, but I can go through life. Nobody gives a shit, but maybe a couple times a year I can walk into a room and everybody freaks the fuck out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, which is the life of a lot of voice actors. And that is what I've always been going for. Always. I don't mean it to be like false modesty or anything. It is just that like, my personality is not conducive to having a lot of like direct attention. And I've got a lot of friends. I mean, I've got some friends here that are some of the biggest actors in the world. And they're really nice people, but there's an element of misery that goes along with their lives because they can't go to the store. And if they do, they can go to the store just fine. But then people are coming up to them and talking to them, and they all have great intentions. But after a while, I mean, what a life where you walk around and everyone knows who you are before you met them. Your life hasn't changed. You haven't changed at all, but everyone around you has changed. It seems like an absolute nightmare. But there are some people that really are good at it, and good for them. I mean, like, I wish I could be that way, but I'm sadly, I'm not.
And unfortunately, when you're in that situation, people might try to take advantage of you. Like, there's a lot
Mhm.
of social climbers that exist. You know, they're not really famous for anything except having famous friends.
Yeah,
Shout out to the Kardashians.
yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
you know, shit like that. Um, like, imagine being Mike Tyson right now. Like, I don't think there's anywhere you could go and not be recognized.
No,
Old
there's
people know who he is. Young people know who he is.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And I in Los Angeles, there is a little bit of a depending on where you live. Like I live in Venice Beach, and Venice Beach is not really like a there are a lot of really wealthy people that live here. We have a rent controlled apartment, so that's the only way we're able to live here. Otherwise, our place would be really expensive.
What's a rent
But
controlled apartment?
rent control is where you get into an apartment and then the rent stays that rate and they can only raise it 3% every year. So like if my place right now is not, it's just a normal 2-bedroom apartment. There's nothing special about it, but the area in which it sits, it should be like $3,800 a month. But we only have to pay like two something because when my girlfriend moved in years ago, that was the rent. And so they sort of keep the rent the same. And if we move out, then the landlord can charge whatever they want to charge. But so that's how, because my neighborhood is incredibly rich people and incredibly poor people. And then all the people like us in between, which I'm not anywhere near rich, certainly not poor, but just kind of right in the middle. So you don't really see, I don't really see too many like every now and again you do, but if you go to places like Beverly Hills or even not so much Hollywood, because Hollywood's kind of like a touristy area, but if you go to some of these places in Beverly Hills, you can sit in a restaurant and you could sit there and look around and see some of the most famous people in the world right now. But because it's here and it's more of an industry town, people do kind of leave them alone. But that's it. I mean, anywhere, you can imagine anywhere else they go where people are not used to seeing somebody like that and people just go nuts, you know?
Dude, I got a buddy out there, and he's in Burbank, and he's one of like, okay, he's pretty big, but you know, only to a certain audience. And
Yeah.
he was in getting coffee one day with his manager, and he's the most energetic 60-year-old you'll ever meet in your life. And like now the actor I'm talking about, like,
Mhm.
and he's in the line behind Caitlyn Jenner, and
Oh,
you know, only when they turned around was he like I don't know what reaction where was coming from. He's like, "Fuck it, Jenner," like to his manager, like behind him, like. But it came out quite loud, and Jenner just looks at him in the face, like, "Hi," and
yeah.
it goes on. He said he felt this fucking small because he had like this kind of like, I'm in front of a celebrity right now. What do I do? Moment, you know?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, for years, I started off as a bouncer at bars in Hollywood, and then like little by little, I worked my
I
way
can
in.
see that. You got the
work
eyebrows
my way,
first.
yeah, right. I sort of like work my way into being a bartender because a bouncer, you just get paid hourly, it's whatever. But you see how much the bartenders are making, so you want to get in there. So I was able to get in there, and for me, for the most part, I was able to keep it together. But like when you're working at a restaurant, somebody comes in, you are obviously going to have some kind of interaction with them. And I worked at a place in Hollywood for years, and for the most part, I'd be fine. But there were some people that would come in that would just kind of blow my mind, and they weren't like really like notably famous people. It was more like directors or people that are kind of used to moving through the world and having people maybe not recognize them as much. But there was one director that came in. His name is Joe Dante, and you can look up. I mean, if you don't know who that is, you can look him. He directed The Gremlins, and he directed a bunch of other movies from the '80s, The Burbs, and Interspace. Some of these like amazing movies. And he came in, and as I was, this is embarrassing, but as I was taking his order, because his films meant so much for me, I was kind of just like, "Hey, sir, how you doing? Um, sorry. Is there anything I started tearing up as I was taking his
Oh.
order for like a burger and fries, and I had to like, and then I had to go back and like compose myself and then come back out. And so I've had moments like that, definitely, but I guess I'm a little bit more used to it now.
I'm
we've
sorry. I'm sorry for laughing. That's rude.
Oh, no, it's okay.
we've had the moments ourselves, like having guests on, like you were saying about that Iranian guy who was kind of freaking out when he seen you.
Yeah.
We've had that plenty of times. Like
Yeah.
this guest, and I was like, oh, in 5 years, I would love to have this guy on. And he got on like in the first month, and I just kind of sat there like,
Yeah.
you know,
I mean,
like
you get used to it though. You like you guys have done this enough that like, it just takes getting used to it. And then especially because once people open their mouth, like, you only knew them from the thing that you admire them for, or the thing that they do that you admired. But then as soon as they open their mouth, it's kind of like, oh, this person's either an asshole or just like a normal, humble, nice person or whatever. But it really sort of like takes all the air out of it, I feel.
Oh,
yeah.
we've had our fair share of assholes on this show. You know who you are. Uh,
We had a guy get on before. We used to have a third host, and it was Thomas. And I was gone one day, and the two lads were at it. And we had a guest on, and they just got on, and they started bullying the two lads. Like they're just making fun of
Really?
them, and it was like, yeah, like we invited you on the show, and you just took, you know, how long out of your day just to insult like a bunch of young lads.
Yeah.
It was pretty weird. We've never had something like it since, but it was comedian. I won't name him obviously, but really
not
weird.
that funny.
Not
Very
that
weird.
funny. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and that's that insecurity that comes out. I mean, the thing that I think I've done it a little bit as we've been talking, but the thing that I struggle against is being really self-deprecating, because it can be funny, but after a while it's like people are watching this because they want to hear me talk about, they don't want to hear me talk about like, they don't want to hear me make fun of myself or talk badly about myself. But I don't know if you guys watched the Dan Allen one, but I feel like I did that a lot. I mean, he was like, you're fine, it was fine. But I found myself just like really taking the piss out of myself. And he was asking me like, how did you come up with the character? And I was like, I didn't come up with the character. They wrote the character. They like sort of taking everything away from myself. And then I talked to one of the American producers afterwards, and she was like, that was fine. That was a fine interview, but don't diminish your contribution to this thing, Oh, okay. Yeah. But it's hard because that's another thing too, is that all the attention gets paid to the voice actors. But the voice actors are the people who work on the game the least of anyone.
But
They're
they
there
have
for
such a significant role. Like
totally.
if I played the Duke versus you playing the Duke, big difference. It's a shit character, and then you do an amazing character.
I mean, it's a really
good job.
Thank you. No, it's an important thing, but I just think of all these artists. I mean, because sometimes too, I mean, I'll just wander around the village just looking at shit because it's so detailed. And you find yourself walking around, and it feels like this medieval village. You feel like it's like, okay, this is another time. And then you come around the corner, and there's a stack of like little cat carriers or something, or like, a truck and like some modern, implements to work on the truck or whatever. And so it's interesting, just all the attention to detail, because Capcom is really big on that, like just really going out of their way and spending as much time as they possibly can on the detail. It's kind of like good old fashioned. It's capitalism, but the good old fashioned kind, where you make something, you want people to buy it, so you make it as good as you can possibly make it, which is kind of rare these days. A lot of times people say, we want a shitload of people to buy this, and we also want to spend the least amount of money on it possible and cut corners wherever we can. And it happens all the time. But with a lot, not just Capcom, a lot of these game companies, they want the thing to sell. The thing is selling for $60, $70 a pop. So it should be worth people's time and worth people's effort. And Resident Evil is definitely one of those. My God.
Imagine being the guy or girl who had to spend like, I don't know, multiple weeks doing all the like the flowers and the grass in that game.
I mean, I think about that a lot when I play Red Dead Redemption. Just thinking about all the landscapes there, because it's so cute.
Someone had to design the fact that like the balls got saggy on the horses when you're in hot places.
Yeah, that is
Like-
so great. Like, the horses shitting randomly because they just kind of do whenever, and it's just like the realism there. And that, I mean, they took like 10 years making that game. I think they took about 7 or 8 years to make Resident Evil. I mean, even now, I'm sure that Resident Evil, the ninth one, they are already well into development, figuring shit out for that game for sure.
Yeah. They're a bunch of amazing people who make these games. Like, even with the likes of Call of Duty, I remember we did a live stream before, Thomas, and for some reason, I brought it up. We are probably getting shot at, mauled at the time. It's hide inside one of the buildings, and I was like, dude, they have USB ports on these plugs. That's so cool. Like, like the splits on your
Yeah.
wall. They like your normal like 3-pin plug for Europe, and then they had like 2 USB ports on the top of it. I was like, that's so cool. That's so detailed. That's so awesome. And then we're getting mauled.
And it's so cool too, because I have to say that, like, for as far as my experience recording it, because you had asked me before about, what I didn't really touch on it. What was it like doing this during part of COVID? And what's interesting about that is that, I think normally a lot of the crew, if they were using us American actors, they would have come over here and wanted to be in the room with us while we did this stuff. And that's usually what they do. But for this one, they couldn't. So there was this time, of course, a time difference. So if they're all in Japan, it's like when I'm recording it, it's like, 2 p.m. And for them, it's like 4 a.m. or something. And so a lot of them, when we were doing these recording sessions, they were doing like almost like graveyard shift, basically night shift, to do this. And there was so many people, but I could only listen to them. So it was a bunch of Japanese people and an interpreter. So for the lines, that's the thing about voice acting, and a lot of people say, well, it's performance capture. Well, my shit wasn't performance capture. So I'm only speaking from a voice actor's perspective, that usually when you're acting in something with somebody else, you have a lot of help by the fact that you're dressed in a costume, you're on a set, there's another actor in front of you, you're having a dialogue with that actor. Both of you has probably memorized your lines. If it's a play, then you're going through, and if it's, then you're doing a take or whatever. But when it comes to voice acting, there's not somebody doing the voice with you. There's not somebody reacting with you. You're just doing it yourself. And you do one line and then you wait for direction. So like when I'm doing Spear and Primal, I'm just sitting there. It's an air-conditioned room. I've got my water. I'm doing whatever. And then I look at the screen, and then suddenly I have to snap into the intensity of a man ripping the throat out of a dinosaur and do that. And then I just slump back down and just have to sit there and wait for direction and wait to do it again. And then I have to snap back into that. And so the same thing with the Duke, where I'm just kind of sitting there, and then we go line by line. And there's a lot of consideration put into the lines. So what happens usually is we come to a new line. They don't give me any direction. They just let me say it however I think I should say it. And sometimes when I do it, they go, great, that was great, moving on. Other times, they spend a lot of time. And what's interesting is when I was sitting there, because of COVID, I could only listen. So I'm in the booth by myself. There's engineers there, of course. And I say a line, and then I hear people speaking Japanese for like 3 minutes or something, talking back and forth. And I'm just sitting there thinking, oh, God, that must have been horrible. They're probably like talking to each other like, we need to get this guy out of here. This is terrible. And then after about 3 minutes, we hear the interpreter go, that was great. Okay, moving on. And there's something about how like they really want to discuss every little nuance, even if it is something that they like. And it's just so funny too, to like, they're speaking to each other in Japanese, but a lot of them do speak English, or at least they can understand English. So it's so funny to have like these people, it's like dead silent. You forget that there are people even there. And then I say a line, like when I say the line, Lady Dimitrescu, beautiful even in death. That waistline, yes. I remember after saying that, the thing went off, and all of a sudden you heard all these people laughing. And so it's just funny. They're like getting the humor, and it's such a meticulous process. It's really kind of I don't know. It was really unique, because obviously when I'm recording Primal or anything else, the person's right in front of me and we're having, sort of a dialogue back and forth. But this was like a room full of people. It was like, so people say, oh, who directed me? Like 20 different people, basically.
Yeah, I know. Making those games is complicated, dude. But you did a really good job. But that does sound like you're a bit hard on yourself there, because even when the lads were having a chat saying it was good, you were thinking to yourself, "Am I getting replaced? Was it a bad
Yeah.
job?"
Well, and that's the thing too. I have to say that there's, you're doing it line by line, and then you do leave. I do leave, and I kind of go like, because like I had said before, or maybe this was when we weren't recording, that I get really, if I have to use my own voice or anything that's close to my own voice, I get really uncomfortable. So usually when I'm doing a character or any kind of character, I always try to sort of heighten it and make it as far away from my voice as possible, even though the Duke is just a subtle change, but it's a lot different than my actual speaking voice. I mean, you can sort of see little sort of similarities there. But so when I went in and was doing that crazy voice, and they said, no, just make it kind of, and so this voice, to me, this voice was just kind of, I don't know if it's going to be as effective, but that was just my opinion. They knew exactly what they were doing, because when they cut it all together, they had a plan. So then watching it in context now, I'm finally able to be like, that was a pretty good performance. You know what I mean? Whereas, and I'm not one of those characters. I mean, like when I do stuff, I love watching myself. Actors are like, I don't like watching myself. I love
I have
watching
too
myself.
much critique from myself.
Yeah, because I've wanted to do this kind of shit, maybe not voice acting. It never occurred to me to be a voice actor. I was like, how does anybody do that? Even as a kid, I was just like, well, shit, I just want to be an actor. And people say, you should do voices. Okay, that's fine. I don't know. But and it's funny that now that I'm thinking of it, that whole thing about, we were talking before about when I sort of snap into the voice and people get a huge kick out of it. It's funny because when I was a kid, because people ask me a lot, like, how did you start voice acting, or what was the beginning of it? And it was never like set out to be a voice actor. It was always, if you're the kind of person who acknowledges people's, like if you're in 7th grade and your science teacher has a voice that sounds like this. So then you go into the cafeteria and you say, hey, John, are you going to finish that sandwich? And they all get a huge kick out of it. That sort of pressing that button, I was doing that when I was a little kid. And then all throughout this time, I really haven't. And now I feel like I'm kind of doing it again, where I'll be talking to somebody and then snap into the voice, and then they just get a huge kick out of it. And when I was in high school,
our principal, he kind of sounded like this. And if you think about it, it's kind of has the same placement of the Duke.
So I feel like I've been doing that voice ever since I was in high school.
Well, there's a little secret for everyone. The Duke's voice came from your old principal.
Yeah,
There you
Mr.
go.
Gebber, his name. Yeah.
Well, we're an hour and a half in so far, so we're probably going to call it quits in a minute. But I do want to say though, when you were self-deprecating with Dan, even a little bit today, and blah blah, you got where you are for a reason. You're a good voice actor. Don't be
Thanks,
so hard
man.
on yourself. In fairness.
No, thank you so much. Yeah, well, and like being able to kind of being able to do this stuff definitely kind of helps. I mean, I feel like I was a lot, with Dan. I feel like with Dan, I was very just like, gee golly, guys, I was in a video game, and I feel like now I'm a little bit more
Professional.
relaxed, definitely. But and I think I can't, it's I find that my biggest goal is to be, obviously the wanting to have the fans notice me. That's nice and everything, but I want to be, I kind of want to be famous among the makers, the people that make games, the people that make,
people hire you. Yeah.
you know what I mean? So they'll give me a job, because ultimately when it all comes down to it, I love doing this stuff, but this is, I mean, not to like take any of the fun out of it. This is my vocation. It's like being a plumber or construction worker. Like this is something I like to do. It's something that I'm uniquely qualified to do. So I would just want to keep doing it. And I always say Resident Evil was a home run for my career, but the bases are loaded because it was Resident Evil. You know what I mean? So obviously, so now I'm just like, just get back on base. Just get back on base. That's where I'm sort of like focused now. But it means the world to me that I was able to contribute to something that is so meaningful to so many people, because I know how they feel about, just loving a game or a movie or a TV series or a musician or whatever, it's great.
Well, I'm glad you're able to help present the art and make it possible. But yeah, I suppose if people want to check you out, Aaron, where can they find you?
Yeah, I have Instagram. I should change my name on Instagram, but it's Duder3, Dooder3, because Duder is a word that I use a lot. Hey Duder, how you doing? How you Duders doing? So so that's Instagram. And then my name, Aaron LaPlante 5, because apparently there were 4 other Aaron LaPlantes. So that's on Twitter, Aaron LaPlante 5. I don't have Facebook. I'm not going to get on Facebook, but those 2 things, I guess, are where you can find me.
There you
And
go.
IMDb, I guess. Yeah.
You what?
IMDb. If you're interested in any
yeah.
of the other work that I've done, then yeah, you can find it on there. Because that's another thing. I get a lot of messages from people saying, "What other stuff have you done?" And I was just like, "Well, there's this website that the whole point of it is that there's a list of the shit that I've done, so you can check that out." But
And to save you the hassle of taking a look at it, it's Resident Evil, Primal, and the most important one, Thomas, go ahead.
Oh, Hotel Transylvania 3.
yes,
Come on,
that's
There we
right.
go.
Get
That's my
on
boy.
board.
There's Hotel Transylvania, and there's also the new one that's coming out, Hotel Transylvania Transformania. I did the voice of the Gremlins in that one too, so look out, check that out.
There you go.
Hell yes.
Can't wait. Well, it was sound having you on. So anyone who watched this, listen to it. Fair play to you for getting this far, and fair play to you as a whole. Jeez, we went on a real bender today. It was good crack. But take it, Andy. Good luck and bye bye.